Many years later, as he faced the firing squad, Colonel Aureliano Buendia was to remember that distant afternoon when his father took him to discover ice. That sentence, that single, perfect opening line, it's a promise, right?
Oh, completely.
It's this magnificent collision of life and death, of impending doom, and this pristine, almost impossible memory.
Exactly. Before you even know who he is, you know his entire destiny is wrapped up in that one moment of wonder. It is the ultimate literary hook. And it sets the tone for the entire world we're about to enter. Macondo. Which is what this deep dive is all about today. We are getting into Gabriel García Márquez's absolute masterpiece, 100 Years of Solitude, first published back in 1967.
Right, and while the Nobel Prize he got in '82 was for his entire body of work, and what a body of work that was.
The whole Latin American boom, yeah.
This novel is, without question, the crown jewel. It's the one that really justifies the honor, the one that changed world literature forever.
So our mission today is pretty precise. We want to understand how this book built a complete symbolic universe in Macondo.
And how it didn't just use magical realism, but really perfected it.
And ultimately how it delivers this profound, painful, and, well, universal message about time, memory, and the human condition of solitude.
We've spent a lot of time pulling together different analyses, some deep historical context, and of course, those incredible iconic passages straight from the novel itself. We want to show why this book is so much more than just a story about a very, very complicated family.
I think we should start at the very beginning.
The founding of Macondo.
And the intellectual fever that really set the Buendía family on its doomed path.
Let's do it.
So the genesis of Macondo is just so crucial because it starts as this kind of anti-place. It's born out of necessity, of course, but also this idealism that's, fueled by fear.
Right. Jose Arcadio Buendía and Ursula Iguaran are running from their past, from this family curse.
And they just walk through the mountains until they find a place surrounded by water and silence.
That geographical isolation is key from the very first page. And the description is so evocative. It's just 20 houses of mud and cane on a riverbank with stones that are polished, white, and enormous like prehistoric eggs.
But the line that always gets me is, the world was so recent that many things did not yet have a name. And that description, that idea of a blank slate, is immensely powerful. It defines Macondo as this metaphor for Latin America itself.
Isolated, full of potential.
Exactly. Full of potential, completely new, but also vulnerable. It's a history just waiting to be written. But the novel immediately suggests that history is already doomed to these cycles of violence and profound cultural amnesia.
And the thing that kicks it all off, that breaks the silence, is the annual arrival of the gypsies. They're the only connection Macondo has to the outside world.
Precisely. Every March, this ragged family of gypsies pitches their tent. They are the bearers of external knowledge, and their leader is Melquiades. He's not just a merchant, he's a sage, a fugitive, eventually a chronicler.
He's this figure of immense mystery. He's described as being the same age as Jose Arcadio Buendía, but he supposedly survived every disease known to man.
And it's that contrast that draws Buendía in. Buendía is the strong, practical leader. But Melquiades represents all the intellectual possibilities that Buendía just craves.
He's the ultimate catalyst.
Yeah.
And the moment Buendía's intellectual solitude really begins is with the first invention they bring.
The magnet.
The magnet incident. It's such a perfect example of Buendía ambition gone wrong. It sets the pattern for everything.
It really does. Melquiades calls it the eighth wonder of the learned alchemists of Macedonia, and he shows how it can pull pots and pans out of their hiding spots.
And he delivers that key piece of Macondo philosophy right there.
Things have a life of their own. It's only a matter of waking up their souls. It's this beautiful, poetic view of the world.
But Jose Arcadio Buendía, his imagination just immediately goes somewhere else. He doesn't see poetry, he sees profit.
He sees a tool for getting gold out of the earth, a shortcut to wealth.
And Melquiades warns him, right? He says it's no good for that.
Warns him explicitly. But Buendía is already consumed. He trades his mule and a whole herd of goats for the two magnetic ingots, completely ignoring Ursula's protests.
And she is the voice of reason, always.
Always. But he convinces himself and the whole town that they'll soon have enough gold to literally pave the house.
The failure is just immediate and so symbolic. After months of dragging these ingots through the jungle, what does he find?
Not a single speck of gold. He finds a 15th century suit of armor, rusted solid.
With a skeleton inside.
A calcified skeleton inside, wearing a copper reliquary with a lock of a woman's hair. It's an incredible image.
He's looking for future wealth, but he unearths this piece of forgotten, tragic Spanish colonial history. It's like a sign that Macondo is destined to just unearth the past and repeat its mistakes, not transcend them.
That's such a sharp insight. The Buendía men are always looking outward for solutions to science, to war, but the answers, or maybe the relics of their tragedy, are buried right under their feet the whole time. And that misguided ambition just flows right into the next obsession, the magnifying glass.
Right.
The gypsies come back, this time with a spyglass and a magnifying glass the size of a drum, the latest discovery from the Jews of Amsterdam, they claim.
And the demonstration is simple. They just set a pile of dry grass on fire with the sun's rays. But Buendía, still stinging from the magnet failure, he sees this and immediately thinks, weapon, an ultimate weapon of solar warfare. Melquiades tries to dissuade him again.
He does. Maybe he sees the violence in Buendia's thinking, but Buendía trades the useless magnets and 3 colonial coins for the glass.
And this is where Ursula is just devastated, because that money was her inheritance. The gold coins she had buried under the bed for a real emergency, for the family's future.
His intellectual fever always comes at the expense of her practical security.
He plunges into these tactical experiments, right? He gets burns, almost sets the house on fire.
He becomes a total hermit, and he spends months writing this incredibly detailed manual on solar warfare and sends it off to the capital.
And you have to picture the poor messenger crossing mountains and swamps just to deliver this completely insane vision.
And he waits for years for a reply, for recognition of his genius. This long wait is itself a commentary on Macondo's isolation.
He waits and nothing.
Finally, he complains to Melquiades, and this is when Melquiades, proving his strange kind of honesty, gives him the gold coins back, and he leaves Buendía an inheritance.
This is the alchemy lab.
The alchemy lab, with Portuguese maps, navigational instruments, and all the ancient formulas.
Which, of course, proves even more ruinous in the short term.
Yeah.
He gets seduced by the formulas for doubling gold.
And he sweet-talks Ursula into letting him dig up her remaining buried doubloons for one last grand attempt.
It's the ultimate sacrifice of practical security for this fantasy.
And he melts it all down with copper and sulfur and lead, convinced he's about to discover the Philosopher's Stone. And what does he get?
A thick, stinking syrup. More like an ordinary burnt sauce. A burned sauce.
It reduces her entire inheritance to a carbonized scrap stuck to the bottom of the cauldron.
It perfectly captures the tragedy of the Buendía men, this huge intellectual capacity for genius, but they just waste it chasing magical wealth that only yields, putrid failure. The cycle is set. Obsessive discovery, huge financial cost, total failure, and then the solitude of the inventor. But his fever doesn't stop with gold. It turns cosmic after that. He starts using the navigational instruments.
He sails unknown seas and visits uninhabited territory, all without leaving his study. He becomes this theoretical voyager, talking to himself while his family's out in the garden actually sustaining them.
And this self-imposed solitude leads to his great astronomical revelation.
Right. On a Tuesday in December, he breaks his silence and announces to his family with almost solemn majesty.
The Earth is round, like an orange.
Which is, of course, completely infuriating to Ursula. She's had it. She's tired of living at the mercy of gypsy notions and failed projects, and she smashes the astrolabe. She shouts that amazing line, "If you want to go crazy by yourself." She is the tether to reality, and she's trying to cut him loose. But then Melquiades steps in again. He arrives, looking rejuvenated because he has this brand new set of false teeth.
Another marvel that shows Buendía what he's missing. Dentistry is a greater magic than his alchemy.
It is, and Melquiades publicly confirms Buendía's genius, acknowledging that he had, just by speculation, proven a theory totally unknown in Macondo, and as a final gesture, he leaves the alchemy lab permanently. This revelation that Macondo is just hopelessly isolated, it sparks Buendía's next big project, moving the entire town. He convinces the men that they're going to rot alive without science, and the only way out is this reckless journey north.
The expedition they go on is one of the most terrifying parts of the book. This oppressive jungle where their boots sink into steaming oils and their machetes are slashing through these thick, bloody lilies.
And the world itself feels hostile. The trail just closes up behind them.
And then they emerge totally exhausted and fined
an enormous ancient Spanish galleon, covered in moss, leaning to starboard, just stuck in a bed of stones miles inland.
It's such a profound, surreal image. This relic of the past, stuck far from the sea, in this realm of solitude and forgetting.
It's a sign of the sea's nearness, but it's also this insurmountable obstacle. When he finally does find the sea 4 days later, it's a gray, frothy, dirty sea that did not deserve the risks.
His reaction is just pure defeat. "Damn it," he shouts. Macondo is surrounded by water on all sides.
He goes back and draws this map, deliberately exaggerating the difficulties, almost to punish himself and everyone else for his failure.
And this is where Ursula puts her foot down for good. She's the practical anchor, and she asserts her ultimate control. She turns the women against the men's desire to move. Her resistance culminates in that definitive statement. Buendía bitterly says he'll go alone. And she replies, "We will not go, we're staying here, because here we've had a child." And he challenges her with that terrifying truth. We don't have a dead person yet. A person doesn't belong to a place until there's someone buried in it. But Ursula answers, and this cements their destiny. "If I have to die so that you'll stay here, then I'll die." And that's it. The family's fate is sealed in Macondo. And this drama introduces us to the first generation's kids. We have Jose Arcadio, the elder son, who's impulsive, physical, just like his father in that way.
And then there's Aureliano, the first human born in Macondo. He's quiet, withdrawn, and already seems to have this prescient ability.
Yeah, there's that chilling premonition when he's 3, and he tells his mother, it's going to fall, right before the pot of broth slides off the table.
That early sign of his prophetic knowledge defines his path, the introspective Aureliano path. And all of this brings us full circle back to the novel's opening image and the moment that defines their legacy, the discovery of ice. It's the next set of gypsies. And Jose Arcadio Buendía goes frantically looking for Melquiades, wanting the secrets of this new mystery.
He finds the tent where Melquiades used to be, but he just finds this taciturn Armenian advertising a syrup for invisibility. And when Buendía asks for Melquiades, the Armenian turns into a puddle of foul-smelling, smoking tar. And over it, the answer just hovers. Melquiades is dead. It's a profound magical way to realize mortality.
But the boys, they insist on seeing the stupendous novelty of the sages of Memphis. So Buendía pays and takes them into the tent.
Where a giant is guarding a pirate's chest. The lid is lifted, this glacial breath escapes, and inside is this huge transparent block.
Buendía, totally bewildered, and probably still thinking of his failed gold quests, murmurs, "It's the biggest diamond in the world." And the gypsy gently corrects him. "No, it's ice." And here is that beautiful moment. Buendía pays 5 rays just to touch it, and his heart swells with fear and joy at this mystery.
Little Jose Arcadio refuses. He has his mother's practical fear. But 6-year-old Aureliano touches it, and experiencing the extreme cold as heat, he exclaims,
"It's boiling."
That shared moment of pure, shocking wonder becomes the memory Colonel Aureliano Buendía carries as he faces the firing squad.
It connects ultimate discovery to ultimate death. It compresses the whole novel into one single image of pure original wonder. So if that first segment gave us the volatile genesis of the world, the next thing we have to talk about is the DNA of that world.
Like magical.
Realism, yes. García Márquez is the master, but we should probably dig into the specific mechanics of what he was doing that made it so revolutionary.
Right, it's more than just magic happens.
It is. The hallmark is that the fantastic is blended seamlessly with everyday life. It's presented with this utterly flat, calm tone of a weather report. And crucially, for the characters in Macondo, the magic isn't a surprise, it's just how the world works.
And it's never escapism. That's the key difference from fantasy. It's pure, potent metaphor. It lets him reveal truths about history or trauma that are just too deep for dry realism alone.
And to see why this style really transformed literature, you have to look at how specific moments of magic are grounded in the most banal details. Which brings us right to the most iconic moment in the book, maybe the most famous exit in modern literature. Remedios the Beauty. Remedios is a character defined by this supernatural purity. Men literally die of desire just from looking at her. She is too pure for Macondo's flawed reality, so she doesn't die, she ascends.
And the mechanics here are just perfect. She isn't carried away in a flash of divine light. She's carried away by sheets, fresh from the laundry line.
The sheets are absolutely essential. They ground this transcendent moment in the mundane. And Ursula's reaction is horrified, not that her granddaughter is ascending to heaven, but that she's lost her best starched white sheets.
The divine and the domestic are right there, side by side. It robs the divine of its shock value and instead emphasizes the everyday tragedy of Ursula's domestic life.
It's genius. Another, maybe even more crucial example of magic as social critique is the insomnia plague.
Oh, that part of the novel is genuinely terrifying. It's not just that people lose the ability to sleep. The true catastrophe is the loss of memory.
It's the dissolution of culture itself. They start losing names, concepts, relationships. So they devise a method of labeling everything. They hang signs on the cows. This is a cow. She must be milked every morning. But then it gets more desperate. They label human concepts. A sign on the main street reads, Macondo. This plague is magical realism at its most profound. It's an extended metaphor for cultural amnesia. It shows how easily a society can just forget itself, forget where it came from.
By losing their memory, they're condemned to repeat their past errors because they can't remember what those errors even were.
And that loss of memory foretells the political repression that comes later, where history is actively suppressed. The magical illness mirrors a very real historical danger.
And then you have the gentler magical elements, like the ghosts.
The ghosts in Macondo are never shocking or scary. Prudencio Aguilar's ghost, the man Buendía killed, he just visits regularly, and he's described as apologetic and lonely.
The fact that he's apologetic is so telling. His presence normalizes how memory and grief and history are all intertwined. The past literally coexists with the present, not as horror, but as this persistent, low-level guilt.
And all of this magic is supported by the novel's radical architecture of time. Time in Macondo is distinctly circular. History doesn't move forward, it loops back on itself over and over, and this is emphasized by the repetition of the names, José Arcadios and Aurelianos. Let's unpack that, because it's confusing for first-time readers, but it's structurally brilliant. The names repeat, but the personalities are inherited, almost predestined.
Right. The names are a signal of not just lineage, but destiny. The José Arcadios are generally the men of physical strength, impulsive action, hedonism.
They're men of the body. And the Aurelianos, starting with the colonel, they're the introverts. Quiet, intellectual, obsessive, men of thought and painful solitude.
So the repetition tells you, the reader, that this family is doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past. They inherit the temperament along with the name.
And the ultimate confirmation of this circular fate comes at the very end through the theme of prophecy.
Melquiades' manuscripts, the ones written in Sanskrit that the final Aureliano has to decode.
And the discovery that everything, every love, war, birth, death, it was all written down before it ever happened. That is the final devastating reveal.
The novel ends with Aureliano Babylonia reading the prophecy, realizing his own place in it, and as he finishes decoding the scroll.
The prophecy comes true. The town is literally swept away by a monumental whirlwind. It confirms the impossibility of free will unless you can break that cycle of solitude and forgetting.
Which, of course, the Buendias failed to do across 100 years.
The structural genius is that the magic is the lens, the circular time is the track, and the family is just running that race, always returning to the same starting line. Which brings us to that theme. The reason they fail to break the cycle, it's the novel's greatest universal theme: solitude. Solitude isn't a side effect. It is the Buendia family's true inheritance, their curse. Across all 7 generations, every major character experiences this profound isolation, often while living under the same roof.
It's the inability to love without reservation, to genuinely connect, that locks them into the repetition.
And we see it in so many forms. Let's start with political solitude, which is embodied by Colonel Aureliano Buendía.
The man who opens the novel, he fights 32 civil wars. 32.
And loses all 32. He fathers 17 sons by 17 different women, all named Aureliano, but what's his final destiny?
A bitter retreat. He comes home completely alone and spends his last days in a workshop melting down gold coins to make tiny goldfish, which he then immediately melts down again.
A completely futile, solitary process. His life is defined by the futility of ideological struggle. His solitude is the hollow echo of endless lost battles.
Then you have emotional solitude. I think of Amaranta.
Oh, Amaranta is the epitome of self-inflicted isolation. She's beautiful, desirable, but she dies a virgin after rejecting all her loves, even driving one to suicide.
All because of this crippling bitterness and pride.
And her penance is literal. She burns her hand and then spends decades making her own death shroud, only to pull it apart and start over. She weaves herself into isolation.
And of course, intellectual solitude, which goes back to the patriarch, José Arcadio Buendía.
His brilliant mind completely detaches him from his family and from reality. He wanders the house, talking to himself, and the narrator even says he considered childhood a period of mental insufficiency.
He gets lost in his speculations and eventually dies tethered to a chestnut tree, rambling in Latin. His intellect condemned him to absolute mental isolation.
And finally, maybe the most painful spiritual solitude, which belongs to Ursula.
The rock. The practical force.
But her final decades are spent blind, helpless, just watching 7 generations of her family fall apart, unable to stop it. Her spiritual solitude is the crushing weight of responsibility coupled with total powerlessness.
So Garcia Marquez is suggesting that solitude isn't just a personal flaw. It's a social pathology that destroys families by preventing empathy and connection.
Exactly. And this collective failure to connect leads us to the novel's powerful historical and political dimension. Beneath the surreal surface, it's a scathing allegory of Latin American history.
We see it in the endless, feudal civil wars fought by the colonel. The ideologies eventually just blur into meaninglessness.
But the most profound critique is leveled against foreign exploitation and historical erasure. This part of the book is devastating.
The arrival of the banana company. It symbolizes external colonial powers, global capitalism. They bring jobs, then oppression, then absolute disaster.
And this all culminates in the Massacre of the Workers, which is based on a real event in Colombian history, the Massacre de las Bananeras in 1928.
That context is so important. In the novel, the workers protest, and they are ruthlessly massacred by government troops, all at the behest of the foreign company.
And Garcia Marquez strips away the magic here. The event feels immediate and terrifyingly real, but the true horror comes in the aftermath.
The denial of truth.
The army collects thousands of bodies, loads them onto a massive silent train, and dumps them in the sea. And then the government just denies it ever happened. The official report says, there were no dead.
The sheer scale of the historical manipulation, the gaslighting, is terrifying.
And then the memory is erased by a torrential biblical rain that lasts for 4 years, 11 months, and 2 days. It literally washes away every trace of the company in the blood.
And the people forget. Only one man, Jose Arcadio Segundo, remembers the truth. But because the denial is so absolute, no one believes him. He's driven mad by his solitary, unbearable memory.
This is where the magic and history intersect perfectly. Garcia Marquez is speaking directly about the manipulation of memory and the deliberate erasure of inconvenient truths from the official record. Which brings us back, finally, to the core question. Why did this specific novel justify the Nobel Prize? Well, it's a monumental literary achievement on so many levels. First, he created a complete universe. Macondo isn't just a town. It's as rich and symbolic as Faulkner's Yoknapatawpha County or Tolkien's Middle-earth.
Second, the innovation in narrative form. It broke the linearity of storytelling, using myth and memory and dreams to construct history in a way that felt both ancient and entirely new.
Third, and this is politically important, it globalized Latin American literature. The success of this book placed Latin American culture and its unique literary voice firmly on the world stage. It launched the boom.
Fourth, he perfected magical realism. He provided the flawless example that influenced generations of writers across the globe.
And fifth, its profound emotional and philosophical depth. It holds together love, loss, hope, despair, politics, myth, all of it, effortlessly.
And finally, it's a masterpiece of language. The prose is lyrical, poetic, humorous, tragic, and tender, often in the same paragraph.
Its core themes of family, memory, and destiny speak to every culture on Earth because they speak to the very nature of human existence. The scope of its ambition and the perfection of its execution really made it the centerpiece of the Nobel justification.
So as we reflect on this journey through 100 years, the key takeaways really are about the power of fantasy to reveal truth, the essential role of memory in shaping identity, and the devastating cost of solitude.
The emotional weight is overwhelming. That opening line about the ice finds its mirror in the devastating poetic ending. The structure itself is a loop that you, the reader, have to enter to see the prophecy fulfilled.
When the final Aureliano reads the prophecies, he understands the beginning and the end all at once. It's a moment of total knowledge and total devastation.
And the fact that Macondo is literally swept away the moment the prophecy is understood emphasizes the family's failure. They were granted 100 years, but they never truly connected, never learned, and so the whirlwind comes to erase them entirely. This is why rereading this book is so immense. It doesn't give you simple answers. It offers these deep, enduring questions. What do we inherit? Do we truly learn from the past?
Right.
How much of ourselves do we lose when we let our history be forgotten? Reading it again is like opening that treasure chest. You're a different person with new experiences, and the book will speak to you in new ways. Macondo might be fictional, destined to disappear, but its lessons are devastatingly real. It shows us the beauty and the tragedy of the whole human experience. Dreaming, loving, fighting, remembering, and forgetting. It's a novel that reminds us that family burdens and the need for connection are paramount. The only way to escape the prophecy, perhaps, is to stop fighting feudal wars and just reach out and hold the hand of the person next to you.
If you haven't read 100 Years of Solitude, this is your invitation to step into the world of Macondo. If you have, consider revisiting that distant afternoon when a father took his son to discover ice. That journey of discovery and the inevitable journey back to solitude is one you won't regret.
Subscribe to the Timeless Tales podcast. Your stories, your time.